Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 260 something of Richard Metal Fan interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with Dave Marvuglio from Daath, also with Chuggernaut and Lester Glow. So, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good, Richard. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's a lovely afternoon here in Georgia. How is it over in wherever you're at?
I'm currently in Boston. It's a good day, It's been yesterday was cold. I'm ready for summer. I'm
Yeah,
I'm done for it.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. It was kind of a little bit hot outside, hot in Atlanta because hence in Atlanta we get the nickname Hot Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so awesome to have you here. So, kind of the format is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of like do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young Dave. So, kind of growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to slap at a bass?
Let me think. So I have an older brother who's also a bass player. And so he kind of introduced me uh, to metal, I would say. So let me think of the bands like Pantera and Korn. So I think the first record that first CD I remember buying with my own like allowance money was Pantera Cowboys from Hell.
Classic album.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Um, yeah. So then, trying to think of other bands from that time period. So yeah, definitely, I guess you could say I was a new metal kid when I was younger. And then
I
just,
was, as was I too.
yeah, yeah, so, Deftones for sure. And then eventually, you start diving into other things as you get older as well, which led me into getting into like Dillinger Escape Plan and things like that. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I was of course like you said, I was into new metal too. That was like probably like the first like I guess gateway for me, like Korn and Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park. I was always say if it wasn't for Hybrid Theory, I wouldn't have gotten into like Cannibal Corpse. So it's kind of funny how it evolves.
Yeah, for me, I got into Cannibal Corpse from watching Ace Ventura: Pet
Me
Detective. I don't know
too.
if you ever seen it. Yeah, yeah, when
That's like
there's
one of my all-time favorite movies.
yeah, it's a great movie. And I just remember the scene where like Jim Carrey, crowd surfs at a metal show and gets on stage and stuff. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
you can do that? And it's
yeah.
like, it
I
was
especially
Cannibal
love his little
Corpse.
dance that he does on stage. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Uh, um, yeah, so, and then and you're asking how it led to me playing bass and stuff. Once again, I have an older brother. He's a bass player as well. He does more like pop country kind of stuff nowadays. Um, but yeah, he had a bass and then he got a new bass, and I was kind of giving me the old bass as like a hand me down, and I just started playing with different friends in the area, and just trying to play whatever riffs we could at the time.
Nice. Do you remember
I
like the
think
first bass that you got?
I have it here. I still
Mm.
have it. Here, let me grab it.
Oh
It's
wow.
yeah, it's we call it the family base because my brother and I both learned on it. It's a PV Foundation, probably from like the early '90s that
Nice.
we
That
still
looks
just
fucking
have.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just a fun thing to have. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
more of I don't use it on any recordings or anything, but it's kind
Yeah,
of
it's
nice to
just
still have the
yeah,
first
so you just
first
have like
instrument that.
yeah, so you just have that to just like play along, play for fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. I noticed
yeah,
you
and
also
just
have the
it's
cello in
kind
the
of a
background.
family heirloom.
Yeah, I noticed you also have the
That's actually
cello.
an upright bass.
Oh, upright bass. Nice. Do you ever just like to just do
Yeah,
classic like do 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 like a jazz kind of thing?
yeah. I played a lot of jazz music and classical music too. So yeah, I don't play it as much professionally as I used to. But it's still yeah, I still do some gigs here and there with it. Yeah.
Awesome. So I was like doing my research on archives. I believe your first band was Lesser Glow. Tell me about that because I'm digging deep. Like I don't think nobody ever talks about them.
Yeah, so let me see. Lesser Glow is a newer project that I kind of joined maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. Almost 2 years. They're based out of Boston, so they're kind of a newer band. Um, that is more, and I don't like using the term post metal that much, but I guess you can put it in the post metal realm of things. We're working on a new record right now. So we'll see when that comes out. Most likely that's going to be coming out through Pelagic Records, maybe
Yeah.
sometime next year. Um, you know, yeah, and then yeah, we just did a little bit of touring with The Ocean. Just did a few dates with them, which was nice. Yeah, but that's like a bunch of Boston hometown friends kind of thing, which is really cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, whereas with Daath, it gets trickier to, not necessarily trickier to work, but I mean, I'm in Boston, Grim and Raf are in Austria, Ayal's in Milwaukee, Sean's in Atlanta, Jesse's
Yeah.
in Texas. So it's a very different thing being able to, work online with one band for the most part, and then the other band get to drive down the street and actually get in a rehearsal room and play some loud music together.
Yeah. But tell me about like that first Lesser Glow album. I thought that was really good. Good yeah, Ruin. So what was sort of like the thought?
Ruined, yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah, you were saying.
Oh yeah, so with Ruin, I'll be honest with the Lesser Glow stuff. I haven't done any recordings with them yet, so I didn't play on that one. But I knew them from the area, and I remember hearing Ruined uh, myself, and I was just a big fan of that band. Me and the drummer Andrew, oh sorry, uh, me and the guitarist Andrew, we played in other bands together where he was a drummer and stuff. So I just followed his music for a very long time. So I was probably, you know, I might have even been at the first show of theirs, and I'm was probably also in the pit for them too during it too. So it's
Yeah,
uh, yeah.
yeah. But then how'd you end up joining?
With Lesser Glow, there was a bunch of times they needed a bass player for stuff, but I had other touring commitments or things like that. We've just been close friends for so long, and then they had a show opening for Cave In at the Sinclair in Boston, and they asked me to play. And then after doing that show with them, they asked me if I wanted to start writing and stuff. So that's kind of where we've been at. Um, yeah, so it's a fun band. It's very different than the Doth stuff, which is I like having different projects for that reason because that stuff is more low and slow, if you will. Where the Doth stuff is a lot more orchestral and technical and stuff. Um,
Uh,
but both are impactful, so it's always fun.
yeah. Yeah, but and then I'm also curious about Juggernaut because that sounds very like very groove metal a little bit. But I know you did play bass on Two Signals, Kashmir, and Control Burn. So tell me about Juggernaut.
Yeah, so Juggernaut. I'm trying to think of the easiest one. So that band has it's since disbanded, but kind of once again a group of friends in the Boston area. It was formed by Dave Cohen and Blaze Collard, um, and they needed a bass player for a tour. So I ended up doing a tour with them, and then I ended up recording an EP with them. Um, on that EP, it's also, I don't know if you've interviewed him or worked with him yet, David Benitez of Extreme Vocal Institute. He also is the vocalist in the band Renaissance.
I have not.
Um, he's a fantastic vocalist. So yeah, we all got to work on together on that one. But that was definitely like kind of more throwback groove metal rock stuff, but like on 8-string guitar uh, kind of stuff. So it was fun. Um, did quite a bit of touring with that. Unfortunately, the guitarist Dave, he passed away last year.
Oh
So that's kind
damn.
of what. Yeah, I don't know if you might have saw it on the news a little bit in the metal world last summer. If you saw when the Animals as Leaders guitar tech passed away. That was Dave.
Wow.
He was on tour teching with them. He also was a fantastic luthier. He had his guitar company, Equilibrium Guitars. So all the bass stuff that you probably saw, especially with the Daath stuff, that metal aluminum neck bass that I have, he built that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then of course last year you ended up joining Daath. So how'd you end up joining the band and how'd you get to know the guys?
Um, so let's see, kind of like anything as a musician in the scene, you know, you kind of hear or get thrown opportunities through your friends. Ayal is friends with my buddy Alex Prado, who's a fantastic engineer. And I guess they were having a conversation about trying to, bring back Daath. And they were looking for a bass player. And my buddy Alex recommended me to Ayal. And then Ayal and I had some conversations on the phone. He sent me some of the demos that he was working on to check out, and I tracked some bass on it and sent it back. And he loved my ideas and what I was going for, and asked me to work on the record. And that's kind of where we're at now. Yeah, and it was, I'm trying to think, it was a lot of fun working on the record. It's very, very different than how I'm used to working because pretty much everything was done remotely. Um, So sending each other ideas and tracks and things that way. So I think the first time I actually met everyone in person was when we were shooting the music videos for Hexon Ending and Ascension.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was like your what was like your first impression of like everybody like Sean and Ale and everybody?
Oh, everyone's great. I'm trying to think, the only member I met prior to that was Raf, because I teach at Berklee College of Music. I'm a professor there. Um, and he was a student there for a little bit. So we've, met up before in the past. Sean is hilarious. He's so
Yeah.
funny.
Same. I actually saw him a couple nights ago.
Oh, okay, yeah, because Krim was, yeah, I'm seeing the Septic Flesh shirt
Yeah, I
there, so
actually
you
got
probably
it. And
were,
I actually actually ran into Krim too, and they were both
cool.
awesome and Sean was cool as shit.
Yeah. Oh, he's so funny, and he's
Yeah.
such a nerd.
Yeah,
I love it.
I've interviewed him. He's hilarious. Like I remember the first time I actually met Sean was actually in October last year. I was seeing Cannibal Corpse, Mayhem, Gorguts, and Blood Incantation. It was like after the show, I was trying to meet Cannibal Corpse, and I couldn't help but overhear him talking about like, yeah, I have the bands and seen him, and I was like, I feel like I've seen him before. And I reached out, I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I know you. Did you say that to say him? He was like, I know you. You're Sean Zatorsky from Doth. I was like, yeah. I was like, dude, you're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a lot of fun. He's so funny.
Yeah.
Man. Um, Everyone's great. Um, you know, it's always interesting because yeah, just as a musician, you get thrown into things. Like I think, you kind of, I don't know. It's especially with that, just meeting everyone for the first time. You never know how things are going to go, and it's been awesome. And then, I mean, I'm trying to think like the first tour I ever did. Um, I played with in Ice Nine Kills for a bit,
Oh wow.
and my first tour was with them. They needed a bass player. I had an audition for it, and then a week later left for a 3 month long tour with six people that I've never really met before. So it's always interesting, kind of
Yeah.
what can happen,
Yeah.
Um,
But
so
yeah, but now we got the new Doth album coming out next week, The
yeah,
Deceivers,
yeah.
which so far I've heard that like the five singles being No Rest No End, Hex Unending, Ascension, Shin the Silent Foray, and Purified by Vengeance. It's absolutely kick-ass songs. So how was the
Oh,
whole
thank you so much.
Anytime, anytime. So how was the writing and recording process has been for The Deceivers, being this was your first
Oh
record with the
man, it was
band?
pretty. Yeah, I'm gonna say intense. Because let me see how I can sum it up. Um, because Aol is so great at keeping everyone on track. He's definitely band dad for sure. And like I said, we were tracking everything remotely. So anything we were talking about, ideas, it's like on Zoom and emails and things like that. And for me, I was one of the final things to be tracked in the order of it. And I, let me see how I can phrase it, because the way they did it, Krim did like MIDI drum tracks first that all the guitars tracked to, and then Sean tracked. And then they were going to redo Krim's drums with like live drumming playing. So he was in Sweden tracking with Jens Bogren. And then I went to Atlanta to track with John Douglas. And it was basically waiting for the drum tracks to get sent, and then I would track, and then we'd send it back, and Jens would start mixing. So I was like the one of the closing things to be tracked. So it felt a little bit like extra pressure because we had a deadline for when we needed the mixes by and things like that. Um, but it was great. Oh, sorry, there's going to be a train going by in a
Yeah.
second here. Um, we'll let it go by. It'll just take a minute. Uh,
I'll just keep it in.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So, and because the way it ended up working initially, um, the first three songs that I tracked for them was "No Rest, No End," um, and "Silent Foray," and um, from that, AL used those songs to then kind of, they shop to labels and see who we could pick up, and we ended up going with Metal Blade. So it was interesting doing three songs and then working on the rest of the record to add to that. And so I think I did the last 6, 7 songs in about 3 days for my tracking side of things. And it was tricky because, as the guys are tracking, it's like, oh, they might have switched the riff slightly and things like that. So we really had to kind of check to see how much changed. Same with Krim's drum parts, because Krim, he does a lot of orchestrated stuff where he's really thought out what he's going to play, but he likes to improvise as well. So then sometimes when I'm was sent the final track, I have to listen through and see like, oh, do I go with Krim here? Do I go with the guitars, or how do I blend them together, especially as the bass player? So
Yeah.
there's times where I'm really following Krim with rhythms, or I'm sticking with the guitars and things like that too. Um, but it was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the record being out. It's been great seeing so far the response has been great, from what we've been showing.
Yeah. Yeah, and being as this was your first record with Daath, were you like listening to like the previous albums like Futility, Hinderers, Concealers, and even the self-titled and try to be like this is how I want to play? Or did you wanted to try to like do something new or different or allowed to like do like your own thing with the new album?
Um, I mean, I definitely listened to those records even prior to the Dots, playing with Doth. So I was familiar, but I didn't want to dive deep into like what it was because part of it's like a rebirth. So, even talking with Ayal and Sean, they, I had creative freedom for sure, especially on the bass side of things to kind of present my ideas, and everything was, I come up with a bass line and send it to Ayal and get his feedback. A lot of stuff he loved immediately. Some stuff we workshopped together and things to find what we wanted. And I think it worked really well together. Um, Especially like Ayal has a classical background as well. Um, his father was a great conductor and stuff. So I think I kind of knew where his intentions were, and just kind of in general understood what his taste and what he would like, and it really aligned with my tastes already too. So I think we were able to work great together on that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but
Huh.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing because the whole lineup got revamped for the most part. So I think all of us had to kind of think of, how do we fit in on something that had such, like Daath has a staple sound. So there's obviously certain tendencies that we need to stay true to, but how do you evolve it? Because, it's what, 12, 13 years since the last record. People want to also see the new version, but if we strayed too far away from what it was, you know, the fans might not like it either. So um, it's an interesting balance to kind of think of. But in the actual act of working on it, it all felt natural to me. Like these are, I think, more of like the head games you play with yourself as you're like thinking about stuff versus when you're actually doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know like last year before the new album, you did a cover of Morbid Angels Where the Slime Live. I thought that was a really fucking good cover. So what made you decide to like cover that song in particular?
Um, we it kind of, let me think how I want to phrase this one. We wanted to show us playing music that we enjoyed, to be honest. That's why we did the Morbid Angel one. We did the Death cover of Philosopher as well. Um, and it's all kind of like, because Eyal's a little bit older than me. It was definitely like Eyal's like gateway of metal, but like they were bands that I've obviously listened to just being a metalhead too, so it was a lot of fun doing our own interpretations of them, getting to work with various people like um, on the Morbid Angel, it's Dave Davidson
Yeah.
is on it.
And what was it like working with
And then when you
him, fellow Bostian?
for him, like to be honest, because just how it worked, it was more um, because or with my involvement with it, because everything's so remote with it. It's more like AL telling us like Dave Davidson's going to do the guest solo, and it's like, all right, cool. And then, hey guys, listen to what Dave did. It's awesome. And we listen, and it's like, yep, it's great, cool. Like it was a lot of just sending and sharing files, kind of stuff. Um, I thought for me, it was cool for working with Dave Davidson because him and I were both at Berklee College of Music at the same time, and we've never actually like crossed paths, but we've come close so many times, and so it was great to finally collaborate with him on something creatively. And then the Philosopher cover for me was kind of special because it was throwback for me because we had Dan Sugarman from Ice Nine Kills, and then I used to play bass for Ice Nine, but I didn't play in the era with Dan, so we still knew of each other. But it's like, I was in Ice Nine Kills like 10 years before he was, or something like that. So, and then if you remember with Philosopher, it ends with guitar and bass solos trading. So it's like old Ice Nine and new Ice Nine Kills shredding solos back and forth. Um, so I had a lot of fun with that one because it's just kind of a weird full circle kind of moment on that.
Yeah, and of course, like playing with like other bands like Doth, like Ice Nine Kills, and of course Lester Glow and Juggernaut. Like, how different of a mind frame is it depending on like the different bands do you play with? Do you have to like be in like a certain headspace with other bands, or are you allowed to like have like free reign to do whatever?
Um, it varies. Usually in I would say in each band there is usually um, either someone or a group of people within a band that tends to be like the creative driving force. Within Doth, I really feel it's Ayal personally. He's like really knows what he wants. He's doing a lot of like he's starting the seeds of the writing and he has ideas and then he works with us and we kind of flesh them out. Um, Sometimes with them, with people, I really enjoy working with all with this stuff and all the guys in Daath because it's very like creative and we're getting good feedback off of each other and everything. With Ice Nine Kills, when I was with them, it was honestly more of like a touring based position. I didn't do get into the writing process with them, so I'm not really sure what that would have been like. But when it's the touring stuff, it's kind of like, all right, here's the parts, play the parts kind of vibe. Some liberties here and there with things, but nothing too adventurous, I would say. Um, and then, let me think. Yeah, and then Lesser Glow and Juggernaut, it was both like very open to writing ideas. Um, I'll come in with riffs and things like that. With the Dot stuff, for the new record at least, I was kind of given structures of songs or forms or at least riff ideas versus me coming in with riff ideas to start the seeds of songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and of course, like this is like the first album with the new lineup, and of course, like being as like the lineups like all over the place. Like, of course, two-thirds of you being in America and the other two living in Austria. Sort of like, how does that sort of like affect like the whole dynamic within Doth?
It's interesting. I think in some ways it weirdly makes things more organized because anytime we've get together or schedule time with each other, it seems of more importance because we have to get stuff done. Like as I don't know if that makes sense or not. It's not. Whereas if I some of the other bands that live in the same city as me, it's like, oh, if we miss something, it's like, oh, we can do it later because we're all around the area. Whereas like we have to be like super specific with our goals with Doth because it's if Krim and Raf are coming from Austria, we have to like be ready. And honestly, even on my preparation side of things, it might be just a mental game thing, but it's like, all right, they're coming all the way from over there. I really got to be on top of things on myself too. So I feel like things actually um, move faster in a strange way. I think it's because you have to stay more organized on it. And then maybe it's because people can do their homework easier. Like, oh, Krim sent me this drum part. Oh, I got 2 hours to really check it out and like listen and try to write my bass parts. I can do it in my own way. Where sometimes I feel like, excuse me, bands that are working together in the practice space, they might miss some of these details and then they might not do the work at home or something like that. I
All
don't know
right.
if that makes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then one question I want to talk about is like your approach to bass. I know you kind of like touched upon it earlier because know you've heard your fair share of like bass player jokes and the memes and stuff. But I feel like you don't gravitate towards flashy bass playing, but instead I feel like as you mentioned earlier, like you find ways to link what the guitars are doing with the melody and what the drums are doing with the rhythm, and have like a very creative sense. So what is like your approach like I with of course with Doth, but like with any other projects that you've ever worked with to track the bass? Do you need to like hear what the guitars and bass drums are doing in order to lay down your parts, or do you have like your parts written and the best the band can write with that?
Sometimes I'll write my own, like I might come in with a bass idea and work with the band with it. With the Dot stuff, I would say like by the time I'm starting to work on the song, I would say, I mean, the song is pretty much close to fleshed out. Like Doth is very guitar centric. So when I'm listening to it, it's like how am I adding impact? What's my role? And what's the intent here? And that's what I have to look at. So sometimes it can be, sometimes it's just playing in unison with the guitars, because then that creates like, especially with heavy stuff, when you have a whole band hitting the rhythms and everything together, it creates such big impact. I call it like when you want to like bulldoze the audience, think like Meshuggah, right? I mean, the bass player is pretty much playing in unison with the guitars most of the time, but it sounds awesome. And then there's times where you can see like there's guitar harmonies going on, and then there's different counterpoint and melodies working together. And that's where I'll start trying to come up with ideas that still feel supportive, but just kind of add different elements and different textures and things. Um, so I don't get, um, when it comes to the flashiness of bass, there's some, obviously, like some bass pyrotechnic stuff that I think is great and fun. And, I'll still learn, but it's like, um, and I'm able to do it, but I think from a creative and songwriting and composing way, the song might not call for that, or the riffs that you're playing might not call for it. Or if I hold off on it and just do a little bit here and there, what it creates more of an impact. So I think it's about finding those moments and experimentation with it. Also with Daath, I'll be honest, it's very like thickly orchestrated because we have, potentially two or three different guitar parts going on. And then we have Jesse with all the synths and orchestration, orchestral elements and stuff. So even when I'm working on my bass lines, I have to kind of like hear what his ideas are because I have to make sure it links well with that too. Um, Versus something that's, just like a trio, if it's just guitar, bass, and drums, that leaves more room for the bass to kind of explore. So it's really about, especially within metal, I think of greatly of impact. What is the bass going to do? One of my favorite bass players for that is Brian Cook. He's the bassist of the band Sumac. He's also plays bass in Russian Circles and Botch. But on the Sumac records, it's a guitar, bass, drums trio, and anytime the bass does something, it has immediate impact. And I think it's I don't know, takes some control to know when to do it and not. So I've always been really interested in that side of it. And and even within the Doth record, it can be small things like, do I do all the galloping rhythms with the guitar, or do I simplify and make it a quarter note, or half note, or whole notes, or how much density? And each choice creates just a different feel and underlying thing. Um, I think after I finished tracking, I remember Eyal called me up, and I think he ended up leaving a voicemail because I missed his call, but he was listening through all the bass parts, and he was noticing when I was choosing these types of moments, and he gave me a very nice compliment about all that. Um, so especially after getting that call, it's like once again, we're all it's great seeing how well this band feels unified on the ideas department. You know.
Nice. Nice. And then I also like to talk about like your setup, like what you use to play recording and live, like in terms of like the basses you use, strings, pedals, and amps and all that. I'm always curious. I always
Yeah,
love when bands talk
um,
about like their gears and stuff.
so I'll talk about it for the Dot stuff. All the Dot stuff, all the Dot music that I've recorded on, it's been the same bass. It's this 5-string aluminum neck, Equilibrium's guitar bass. It's a workhorse. I call it the Claymore, because it's literally the neck is aluminum and it is a heavy bass. So it feels like I'm swinging a giant broadsword all the time with it. Um, but for the setup on recording, it's very simple. We're just doing a DI for the bass, and then it's been reamping, kind of letting Jens choose what he wants to do. There's some really nice nail the mix stuff of Jens working on the Dot stuff, and he kind of goes into what he did on the bass. Most of it on the record is um, his bass Ampeg SVT plugin for it. So it's really just my DI, and then he's reamping through that. And he has a couple other little mixing tricks that he does on it. And it's really simple, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do live once we start doing shows. We've done a few rehearsals, um, and for that I was just using um, oh, what is it? The Dark Glass, the X7, I think it's called. Not it's not the B7K and it's not the Alpha Omega, it's the other one. I think it's the X pedal. And it was just that. And so it was very simple because I think most likely when we're playing there might not be cabs on stage. So if it comes to that, I might be using the either a neural or line 6 helix maybe. We'll kind of see. Um, Whereas, so that one's really, with Daath, it's simple. With Lesser Glow, I'm doing quite a bit more as far as bass tones for that one. So I'm usually, for cabs, I'm using an Aguilar 410 and a 15. For the head, it's either been my Varellin Meat Smoke or an Aguilar DB 751. It depends on, I bounce around a little bit. As of late, it's been kind of the Varellin. And then for pedals, that's where I get a little bit weirder because I'm heavily distorted in that group. So I'm actually running, I don't know, parallel distortion pedals, if you understand what I mean by that. So parallel versus series. So it basically sounds like 3 or 4 distorted basses at the same time.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
EQ, and I EQ them differently. Um, and so for that, it's a blend of my, like a clean signal, um, a Fuzzrocious cattail pedal, which is their like rat style distortion pedal, and then Does It Doom's um, like HM2 clone that they did that they had Dunwich kind of design. So it's the clean distortion A, distortion B, in parallel, always on, just big wall of sound kind of thing. Um, and so yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm using any other tricks. For strings, DR strings, depending on the bass, it's different ones. It ranges from either high beams or the pure blues. I tend to use the pure blues on the aluminum bass mainly because I play very hard, and uh, I'm known through, well, my guitar tech always makes fun of me because I'm known for denting frets because I play so hard, and
Oh shit.
they wear very quickly for me. So when I got the aluminum neck bass, um, doing a refret on that instrument seems very difficult. So I switched from using stainless strings to nickel strings because the nickel will dent before the stainless steel frets do, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So you need some that are like more durable.
Yeah, so the yeah, because if I use stainless steel strings with stainless steel frets, they'll eat each other out. But if I use nickel strings with stainless steel frets, the nickel strings will get hurt, not the frets,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. And
Um,
do you usually play with fingers or pick?
uh, Lately it's been pick. All the Daath stuff is pick. I'd say at this point I mainly play with a pick, but I used to be like purely a finger style player. Like when I toured with Ice Nine Kills, I was doing all that finger style. Um, but then I started doing, session work as a bassist, and I was working with various producers that I really admired. And I'd be in these sessions and I was playing fingerstyle, and they kept asking me, "Hey, by any chance, could you do it with the pick?" And I didn't want to say no, so I would just kind of do like a hack job with the pick. And I was like, I should probably really figure this out. And then um, I fell in love with using the pick. So it depends on the song. There's some recordings and sometimes live where I switch back and forth in the same song depending on the part. But for most of the Daath and Lesser Glow stuff, pretty much anytime I'm doing the metal stuff, I tend to do it with the pick.
Yeah, just to
The
rip
finger
the bass
styles,
lines better.
yeah, it's a sound thing. It feels more articulate. And then I really like it because how do I put it? If I do a downstroke or an upstroke, there's a slight difference in timbre, and I can play with that to kind of change how the riffs speak. Whereas fingerstyle, to me, there's not as much of a change in that. Um, so, yeah.
All
And
right.
then yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you're saying.
Oh yeah. And then as far as like picks, which kind I use, I like to use, I might even have one in my pocket here. I tend to just kind of keep them here.
Got the
Yep,
pick
I got
of
one.
destiny.
Yeah, the pick of destiny. Yeah, I use mainly the Dunlop, the 88, so it's like the greens. Um, kind of put it in, let me see if I can get it in focus here, but I use the
Yeah.
like the triangle kind, mainly because there's more surface area, and then I don't, do you play guitar or anything?
I I don't, but I actually do collect like picks and stuff whenever I go to shows.
Oh, cool. Um, yeah. Well, I'm curious who you have in your collection because I have a collection of some too.
I
But
actually
yeah,
have a few
basic.
right here.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a Havoc pick right here.
Oh, nice.
I got Suicide Silence.
Very cool.
And Switch, I know you were recently on the Garza podcast, which is
Well,
awesome.
yeah, that was awesome getting to know him then.
I actually had gotten a Doth album signed and it actually came with a pick too that was taped
Oh,
on
great.
front. I don't know who it
That's
was. It might have been AL's.
yeah, that's cool. I think my I guess the pick that I hold dearest, I have two that I really like that I have. I have a Justin Chancellor pick that he gave me from Tool, and then I don't know if you know. Have you ever heard of the bassist Carol Kay?
I have not.
She is one of the like they call her the first lady of bass. So she played bass on like Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, like the old school Mission Impossible theme, um, Nancy Sinatra, all this stuff. Played with Ray Charles. So she gave me a pick as well. So I have those are like the two like super famous pick people that are picks that I have that I'm like.
Yeah,
Um, but I also like collect them too. I have a lot of weird odd ones. I
same. I
have
also have a couple more. I remember having like a pick from Nurgle from Behemoth, a couple Cradle of Filth picks. Uh, like I can't
cool.
remember. And I had like a Monomarth pick and a Kerry King pick.
Oh, cool. I have a one that it's made from mammoth tusk.
Wow.
So it's like an ivory. It's like an ivory pick, but it's like yeah, made from like old mammoth tusk.
Like, how
Um,
do they even get the tusk though?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
well,
I thought
since it's
mammoths are
mammoth,
extinct.
yeah, they're extinct. So I don't know if it's just a fossilized thing. I don't know. Yeah, but it's a cool one. Yeah, um, yeah.
Yeah. And so, kind of like in the end, David, to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Doth? I know we got the new album coming out, and I know you're trying to work on shows and stuff. Is there a chance maybe we can get a Doth playing their hometown show in Atlanta soon? Soon, I'm there when you announce it.
I hope we do. We're figuring that stuff out. There's been, we're definitely focusing on the release of the record, and we're gonna see how things line up for us to do some touring. We got offered a couple tours, but they didn't quite feel right in the way we wanted to do it yet. So that's definitely going to be the next step for us is kind of really locking that in. I hope we do an Atlanta show. I really enjoy Atlanta. I always have a great time there. Um,
Yeah, you ever
so
played
we'll
like the
see.
Masquerade a bunch?
Yeah, yeah, I've played the
Yeah.
Masquerade a bunch.
I could
Yeah,
imagine you all playing the Hell stage. I think you all it would fit perfectly when you all come back. I can play there.
yeah,
I think that would be perfect.
yeah. That'll be great. I'm really I enjoy recording and stuff, but I think my favorite thing about making music is playing shows. I always just enjoy playing live, so I'm really eager to do some live shows with Daath. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's been fun for me to start learning the old songs as well and kind of figuring out my interpretations of how I'll play those bass parts and things. Um, so it's gonna be a lot of fun, and then get to share, you know, the Deceivers songs with you all live. It's gonna be really special.
Awesome. So thank you, David. Is there just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
I don't know, just general thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. And yeah.
Awesome. So everybody, David Marvuglio from Daath. We'll see you next time.